Now it's time to go into some details, some work, some presentation. I invite Carlo Alberto and the speaker, the first panel, to join the table. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vito. Good morning, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Adrian Temple. This is the Adrian Wall for barbarians at the gate, because I have no intention of being your moderator today, so forget any moderation. I'm here as a challenger, and thank you, Vito, for inviting somebody external. This is not a self-celebration of the Register of Europe and the world. This is an occasion of accountability, an occasion of discussion, a challenge to put your data, our data, at the center of a new layer of civilization. My friends, you are one of the fundamental institutions of civilization. You have to take this for responsibility. And the first guest today and the first panel will open this issue. Data are a layer, fundamental layer for economic development, right, Sergio? But we have a problem here, a problem of sustainability. Let me make this joke. Data today are like a lunch for Milton Friedman, okay? They might be open, but they're not necessarily free. And we have to find a way to become sustainable in the production of this fundamental public good. And the European registers have to find an equilibrium between costs and revenue. So let's challenge everybody to find the internal value for sustainability and the external value for society in the valorization of our data. And Sergio Arzeni, who's Director for Entrepreneurship, SMEs, and Local Development at your cousin organization, the OECD, the fundamental convergency of all data of developed countries, will offer his view on how data are a fundamental institution for society. Sergio, you have the floor. You want to speak like a formal speaker? Ah, sounds good, yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Mr. Cremonesi spoke a minute ago about transparency, the importance that registry can have on transparency. I would like to say that my organization, the OECD, is contributing to the transparency. We have launched the BEPS, the tax-based erosion and profit shifting exercise that has been endorsed by the G20. Whereby we have discovered something I find relevant, that on average in OECD countries, small business pay 6 times more tax than multinational and big corporations. On average, small companies pay 30% corporate tax, while multinational corporations pay on average 5% corporate tax. And some corporations are even smarter. They can pay 2% corporate tax. You may know which one is that. We have also, it has been agreed also, the automatic exchange of fiscal information among authorities of not only OECD countries, well beyond, also the so-called tax havens. Switzerland has agreed on that. It was one of the last countries, and also Singapore. So this, the contribution of my organization to transparency is an indication of the OECD in action for transparency and also for the provision of data. provision of data. The OECD is one of the largest provider of comparable statistical, economic, and social data. That is, and this is something that is well recognized, not only by government, by the private sector, and the researchers. We don't, the OECD is an evidence-based economic intelligence organization. Evidence-based because we think that in every country there is always a very heated political debate on any economic subject matter. We provide a common ground where different political parties, different opinions can have something solid on which, indisputable, in which they can dispute. So that is what we do. We carry out analysis and we favor the dialogue. Not only the OECD is no longer the rich countries club. We have expanded our membership. And we have now 34 countries. Last countries who joined the OECD is Israel. We have Chile. We have Estonia, Slovenia. We are in a process of close engagement with key partners such as China, Indonesia, India, South Africa, Brazil. In the accession process, it's Russia, Colombia. So this shows you what the OECD, and the OECD is a key supporter, economic intelligence supporter of the G20. The G20 is nowadays in the global management architecture of managing globalization is the ultimate structure, and we are the intellectual supporter, the prime intellectual supporter to that, and data supporter for the G20. And we do that through, of course, the peer reviews. The peer reviews is something we don't, contrary to the IMF or World Bank, we don't distribute money and charging. Because you know that the staff at the IMF and World Bank is paid with the interest on the loans that they give. The OECD, 3,000 staff, of which over 1,000 economists. So that's, and we provide, we exert through best practice and peer pressure, peer reviews and peer pressure. We try to encourage countries to have a more virtuous behavior. And we go into that to implement better policies. So that's the OECD as a whole. Within the OECD, in my directorate, we deal with entrepreneurship and SMEs. And in these areas, we have developed a number of products. One is, as you can see, the SME scoreboard on SME and entrepreneurship finance. We will launch in a few weeks the 2014 edition, in which under 13 indicators we provide factual data on SME finance, on the credit crunch that is affecting the financing of SMEs, and in a way which is factual and not as often, too often, policymakers in the issue of financing SMEs, they go through anecdotes, through just latest short inquiry here and there. So we are providing policymakers, private sector, entrepreneurs, financial institutions, some data. We are developing at the moment, in collaboration with the G20, a new product, a policy benchmarking on SMEs and entrepreneurship, which is aimed at identifying the most suitable ecosystem for enterprise creation and small business development. We carry out country reviews and thematic reviews. The business data. Business data are important, as I told you, for policymakers, for enterprises, and for research. For policymakers, it's important, you know, the OECD qualifies itself as the organization that is aimed, our mission is to provide, encourage government to make better policies for better lives. At the end of the day, there is an improvement of the lives of entrepreneurs and citizens. This is the end message, not just to serve government. And this is why we attach so much importance to the implementation of public policies. Because it's important to have timely, reliable, comparable data for better understanding what is happening and why it's happening. And without that, policymaking is driven by emotions, and emotions often lead you nowhere. 10 years ago, the second OECD ministerial conference on SMEs and entrepreneurship, which took place in Istanbul, made a call for better data on SMEs and entrepreneurship. We recognized that it was not possible to implement properly policies, effective and efficient policies for SMEs without proper data. And we responded to that with building a new tool, the so-called Entrepreneurship Indicator Program, which now has developed for a number of years, every year, the report Entrepreneurship at Glance. Entrepreneurship at Glance is a report that provides data on the structure, dynamic of enterprises in most countries, and the demography and the turbulence, registered the turbulence in the demographic of enterprises. The key principle of the Entrepreneurship Indicators Program is not to provide additional burden to statistical offices, but to use the existing and make comparable the existing data among countries and data also coming from chambers registries. So that we are using for the Entrepreneurship Indicators Program also your data. And we are very grateful for that. Firms, business data are extremely important for firms, not only for supporting the market interaction, but as Ms. Cremonesi was saying in its opening remarks, for the simplification. We know, we have calculated in the OECD that for a country, for the country that has been more advanced in cutting red tape for SMEs is the Netherlands. And the Netherlands has calculated that the cost of compliance to administrative regulations is 10 to 12 times bigger for SMEs than for big companies. And it has been estimated that in the Netherlands, the reduction of the administrative burden to small business has enabled the country to increase its GDP by 1%. So the cost of compliance of public administration is in the range of 4% of GDP. So if you reduce by 25%, it's a 1% GDP increase, which is not, in this economic framework context, is not a little contribution. So that's, but I have to tell you that if we look at the doing business of the World Bank that everybody refers to, watch out, because what is the underlying assumption of the doing business? Is the number of days to set up a new company. And countries like to see where they are positioned in the doing business. But what is the underlying assumption? Is that the best country in the world is the country that has no regulation. Is that what we want? Is this the dream of our world? I think that we need regulations. But we need better regulation, smarter regulation, but not no regulation. Because no regulation means the jungle. We want to go back to the jungle? That is because all this doing business, apart from the technical thing. Then there is this issue that, for instance, take Italy. Italy, on the average, 11 days to start up a company. It's in Italy 6 days, but is the number of days what is the most important, or the cost? Because if you see in Italy, it's 14% of the income per capita, the cost of incorporating a new business, versus 3.6% in the OECD countries. So, not just, so be careful when you look at the doing business. It's not just, we are good friends with the World Bank, but I think that we have to say things. And then for researchers, researchers. We are also researchers, but we think that it's important. Now there is this open data. Our chair has said open data, but not free data. In any case, in the case of the OECD, open data means free data. And this is very painful. We are committed by 2015, by next year, to put online for free all our data, which is a loss of several million euros for the OECD, and we have to make the necessary adjustment. But this is the justification for getting public support, because the OECD is paid by taxpayers. And taxpayers say, we pay your salary, we pay your, and we want the result of your work for free. We don't want to pay another time. We already paid for you. So that's, and we have to accept this, there is a logic on that. Something different is when you are when you are in any case, the adjustment to open data represents a heavy cost. A recent UK report by the National Audit Office estimates an additional staff cost for the government for providing standard information disclosures of pre-existing data in the range between 53,000 and 500,000 pounds. So there is a cost for everyone to adjust to these new realities, but this is the challenge that we are facing. I think that national registry have to face this challenge as we are facing at the OECD. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergio. And the issue of how much data must be open and how much they must be free, it's also an issue of what is a public good when we speak about data, okay? And I understand that your OECD data are typically a public good because of their general purpose. Business registers are a specific kind of public good, and therefore their economic value and their economic price must be stated carefully, with an equilibrium, okay? In order not to create private monopolies on top of open and free public data, because that's what we have seen today, okay? So I don't want to shift monopolistic power from public to private. If I do, I want to make sure that everybody is aware of the risk. Let me give the word, thank you Sergio, to Matteo Beghelli, Centro Studi of Unioncamere Emilia-Romagna. Matteo, you have the floor. And you have my timing from now. You're not from OECD, so you have no more French benefit. You have to make the necessary adjustment. Thank you.
Just 15 minutes. Okay. My name is Matteo Beghelli, as already said. I work for the Regional Association of the Chambers of Commerce of Emilia-Romagna. My aim today is to show you some use that to share with you the use that we make of your data, the data from the business register, combined with the other sources of data. I want to apologize for my voice because I found myself with the flu this morning, so my voice goes up and down sometimes. Okay, I'm sorry. in the frame of today, I am going to increase the value of the data, not decreasing the price. So I'm going to show you the use that we make of the data from the business register, so showing the importance of having this data, combining them with other sources of data. Okay, this is just Unioncamere Emilia-Romagna. I told you I work for, and one of our aim is to study and analyze the regional economy. This slide, I am very fast, you see, is just to show you where Emilia-Romagna is. We are, the Italian territory is divided into 20 regions at the moment, and Emilia-Romagna is the one highlighted in orange. I lost myself.
Matteo, the colors of the provinces are illegal today, so don't show them again,
no,
okay?
they are actually legal at the moment. For today, it's maybe till afternoon.
Till afternoon, okay.
Till afternoon.
In Italy, always wait till the afternoon,
yeah,
okay?
They are still legal at the moment, and the capital is still Bologna at the moment. Anyway, just a joke, because we love to change things in Italy, you know. Okay, we have used data from commerce register, from business register, and combining this data with the data from import-export for Emilia-Romagna and other regions, and for 8,000 products for all the countries of the world. Then we have used also balance sheets for joint stock companies, because these are the only companies that in Italy have to deposit their balance sheet annually. Then we have also balance sheets from all over the world, from 1,020 millions of companies all over the world, and also shareholding information about firms from all over the world. Also, we have data from social security contributions to have employment figures. We combined all these informations, and we combined also informations from sample analysis that we carry out annually in our region. And then we do that just to get to two aims. The first aim is to give companies, firms, information about best practices. We studied the features that the companies that still grew during the crisis had, and then also to provide companies with information useful for their everyday work. This is what we did to get to the first aim. We studied the behavior of companies during the crisis from 2008 to 2011. We are now updating our data for the balance sheets of 2012. And then we found some firms, 35% of the firms located in Emilia-Romagna, that we called with match fantasy resilient firms. Because they grew in terms of turnover, profits, and the number of employees, even during this period. Then we tried to analyze the features of these companies. And we, with some surprise, we found out that these features are soft kind of features. Given the sector and given the dimension, the size of the company, what made the difference during these years were their organizational behavior, their investment in employment in terms of well-being, their well-being in the workplace. And they employed more females, they employed more graduates, they haven't follow a medium to long-term strategy, and they have a strong connection. They invest a lot in their surrounding communities. These are, I can say, statistically proven information that can be useful for policymakers to enhance, to encourage specific behaviors of the companies. To pursue the other aim, to provide our business association and the policymakers with useful information for their work, we have compared the business structures of our of our region, with the export performance of our region as well in terms of business sectors. Then you have some business sectors where you have strong or average business structure and strong or average export results. So these business sectors doesn't need specific help. They simply need to be watched out and to spend attention about what's going on about them all over the world. Then you have sectors where the business structure is weak, and then you have, but you have good export results. So these fields of activity may be the beginners of new subcontracting, of new exporting sectors. Also, you have strong business structures, but weak exporting performance. This may be due to the kind of the product that you are analyzing at the moment, but also can be attributed to some opportunity that the sector is not exploiting at the moment. So if you are a representative of a business sector, if you are a representative of a cluster, maybe you are interested in exploring this kind of potential opportunities. Talking about opportunities, you can be also interested in analyzing this is an example from our region, Parmigiano-Reggiano Parmesan cheese, and this simply compares the performance of our region with the performance of the world in comparable products. Just to say that using data helps you to avoid to take for granted what is commonly said about countries, because you see markets to invest in Russia and Japan and the Netherlands, countries completely different from each other. But I go particularly fast with this slide because I want to show you the next ones. This is another example of map of opportunities and is being carried out for Parma ham. Another product from our region, and you see that you have many information about all this information have been obtained by the use of data from business register, from balance sheets, from import-export, and so on. We all have linked them with each other. Then you have the comparison of two countries, United Kingdom and France, the big importers of Parma ham from all over the world. And you see that in Italy we have completely different market positions, because we don't have big market share in UK, we have in France. The price is very high for our exports compared to the one of from other country in Great Britain. And then we have tried to summarize all this information in opportunity rating index, which goes from 0 to 4. And if you choose to, let me say, to go to Russian Federation, because maybe you are a company and you want to explore the opportunities of Russian Federation, because there is a fair organized by, I don't know, the Chambers of Commerce back and with the maybe money backed by the Commission, then you can have a list of distributors for Russian Federation as well. You can also be interested in exploring your competitors in Italy and worldwide, and this is a list of Italian competitors producing ham. You can also be interested, maybe because you want to explore the international opportunities, interested in companies that have been acquired by foreigner companies in Italy, and as well companies that Italian companies that have invested abroad in this field, where they have invested and the company that they have. You can also be interested in the map of competitiveness. You would like, maybe you are interested in trademarks owned by companies operating in your sector, and as well in patents that they have deposited. You can compare your company with other companies from all over the world because maybe they are your competitors on a specific market. We have compared an Italian company with a Spanish, French, and Chinese one. And maybe you are also interested in a local scenario because maybe you are from cluster organization. Then you can compare, aggregate and compare balance sheets for your clusters and with another cluster in Italy and with another cluster again in Spain. Again, also with this, the point of view of clusters, maybe you want to explore the international opportunities for it, and then you have the analysis of the international performance of your cluster. Okay, this is just a very little example of what you can have combining data from business register, so combining your data with data from all other sources. And so these are just few examples of the feedback that you can give to the companies for what they pay to be compliant with the business register. Thank you.
Thank you, Matteo. The interesting thing that you provide competitive data with Andalusia and Extremadura on jamón serrano versus the Parma ham, and so the next speaker is Ana Maria del Valle, director of Colegio Registradores from Spain. Ana Maria, apart from comments about Juan Carlos, what can you say about the Spanish perspective for business registers? You have the floor.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, I have been asked to talk about how data from commerce registries in Spain support directly or indirectly policymakers in different sectors in the preparation of policies. How these data are easily available for these policymakers, and what kind of data aggregation is of interest and of real value. But above all, I want to talk about which is the added value of data or commerce registry supply. The commerce registry in Spain is a legal and public institution whose aim is to provide reliability and certainty to corporate and commercial registered transactions and published data. A register is not just a deposit of this or any other kind of documents whose contents are scanned, indexed, archived, and published. Its main activities are the registration of operations related to sole traders and companies, incorporations and structural changes in companies. It takes a deposit of annual accounts, makes the legalization of accounting ledgers from companies and sole traders, the appointment of independent experts, auditors, and insolvency mediators, and supplies online information permanently updated and fully reliable recorded data. Registries in Spain are managed by registrars, and a registrar in Spain is a professional lawyer whose function is to review the documents that are intended to be registered. They perform the checking of the legality of the operations and facts contained in those documents, and finally provide information about registered entrepreneurs and companies. In this commitment, they offer the user legal advice before, during, and after carrying out the operation to be registered. And they are personally liable for any dysfunction or error if they allow the registrations of incomplete documents. They're also the managers of their own offices, responsible for its infrastructure, material organization, human resources, and finally, all its running. And they are also public officials, so the information that they provide from data in which they have worked has important legal effects. Third parties will be protected from possible inaccuracies or deficiencies in the creation process or decision-making of registered companies. The Colegio de Registradores is a corporation in which all registrars are grouped. All registrars in Spain mandatory has to be members of this corporation, and registrars in Spain can be in charge of land registries, commerce registries, and movable property registries. And the Colegio coordinates the running of them all. Because of this, it can use and interrelate all data handled by these three types of registries, and this is very important for institutions. It is in charge of central services such as the Central Electronic Platform, access point to the registries, the three registries I have mentioned, especially in our case, the Commerce Registry, guaranteeing interconnection between domestic registers and with the European interconnection system as well. It rules a public insolvency register that manages and publishes all the information about companies and entrepreneurs involved in insolvencies procedures. The CRAP, which is a Laundering Prevention Center, particularly effective as it contains data from all the three kinds of registers I have mentioned. So the interrelation of all this data is very useful for the laundering prevention. The Colegio looks after the quality of the service provided by registries and mediates in relations between registrars and final users, public or private ones. It has as well the PAE, which is a point of attention to the entrepreneur. The single point of attention allows companies or entrepreneurs to fulfill all requirements in order to incorporate a new company or any kind of operation related to a business registry. Coordinates and supports the electronic services of the registries, and rules as well the CPE, which is a statistic processing center, collects, processes, and supplies statistics based on registered data. Due to all those functions and activities, our system can be of great help to policymakers. For example, in legislative reforms, registrars, through their colegio, inform every project of a legislative initiative or reform. Any legal provision projected that can affect its area of working must be studied and informed by the colegio. And each new law, legal provision is immediately adopted, incorporated, and given impulse in its practical application by registrars. They make an evaluation of their effect and the success or failure of the initiative in order to improve results. It has happened lately with different types of companies. For example, the introduction of the SLNE, which was a new type of limited company in 2003, was valued by registrars as a complete failure in order to achieve a fast way of incorporation of companies. And that promoted a change in laws in a better direction, really effective in this case to incorporate companies in a few hours. This is also related with the role of promoting new legal provisions that the registrars have through their colegio. There is another aspect by which registrars can support policymakers. That is their activity as a source of data and institutional cooperation. Registrars through the colegio, have official agreements with all kinds of policy regulators, policymakers, and administrations, central, regional, and local government, and another kind of institutions such as universities, for example. All kinds of data recorded in registries, all the statistics studies are supplied to regulators and administrations and are considered essentials in order to improve legislation. We supply our data to ministries, the Central Bank of Spain, the National Statistics Institute, municipalities, regional and local governments, and so on. And this information is used and considered by these institutions to take decisions about economic policies and policies to support business and commercial activity. From all the data processed and recorded in the registries, the Colegio develops periodically published statistics. In the field of the Commerce Registry, for this purpose, we use registered data or facts related to the economic cycle. We manage at least 16 different commercial operations that can show companies' status. We use large groups of indicators, for example, to analyze the business network, creation and disappearance of companies. We take in consideration as indicators new companies, incorporations, and companies' closings. We use as well capitalization indicators that point out the investors' confidence in their commercial and business projects. Indicators such as capital increases or reductions or issuance of liabilities. We study the dynamic of transformation between companies by structural modifications such as mergers or spin-offs. Insolvency procedures that measure extreme difficulties of business financing, different systems of administrations and economic and financial situation of companies by annual account filings. Yes. Our Statistics Process Center also works out and publishes periodical reports in commerce and business. For example, we have the Insolvency Report, which is an annual publication that shows in detail companies involved in insolvency process because of extreme difficulty in financing. It collects relevant information about bankruptcy and insolvency processes in relation to financial information of companies declared insolvent. We work with more than 60,000 documents from more than 28,000 companies in 9 years, and we analyze different kinds of insolvency processes, refinancing agreements that try to avoid insolvency, financial and economic characteristics of the companies involved, such as their dimension or sector of activity, expectations of creditors or credit recovering by agreements, management and control of an insolvent company, and length of the process, because the shorter, the better for our future viability. We have as well the economic statistic by sectors publication. We analyze the structure and economic performance of small and medium enterprises based on ratios and organized in groups, structure, functionality, capital coverage, management indicators, financial indicators, shareholders' revenues, employment and its costs, and so on. And we consider more than 200 different sectors of activity. We have as well an evolution of a panel with a common sample of components during the last 4 years, analysis by big sectors of activity, and a specific study on research and development. Here we can see different kinds of examples of conclusions of statistics. I'm going to pass them: incorporations, insolvency processes, annual account filings, a number of digital accounts, etc. Well, the use of XBRL language in annual accounts has also meant an improvement of the usefulness of data incorporated in them. In 2001, we began working with XBRL in Spain, and just 2 months ago, we have celebrated the 10th anniversary of XBRL Association Spain. The chair of the Colegio de Registradores is currently president of this association, and I'm its secretary. Its aim is to promote and spread the use of XBRL. Currently, 80% of annual accounts in Spain use XBRL format, and more than 800,000 documents a year. That's what it means. The language based in XML standard can be used by all participants in the change of information: providers of data, companies, registries, analysts, banks, application developers, etc. And it has lost lots of advantages, provides transparency and reliability, implies cost and time saving for the user, helps the automatic process of filing and delivery, allows massive process and checking of data coherence, and makes information exchange quicker and secure between users, registries, and regulators, and helps to make public and private decision-making easier. Here you can show the flow of data between users, filers, registries, and the final users. But I want to end and talk about the actual main added value of our data. The Commerce Registry in Spain is the main legal instrument of formalization of business deals, essential for economic growth and as a measure to drastically reduce transaction costs. Entries at the Commerce Registry are made after a previous and thorough legal scrutiny, including legally check and the validation of the contents of business acts, stakeholders' agreements, and legitimacy and capacity of those subscribing such acts. Commerce Registry entries produce strong legal effects. The contents of the registry is presumed valid and exact. Register acts can be opposable in front of third parties. Registry entries are safeguarded by the courts and will produce its legal effects unless proven inaccurate or null and void. And the judicial declaration of an accuracy and nullity of entry registries will not harm the rights of bona fide third parties in accordance with the law. As I have stated at the beginning, the commercial registry in Spain is not a registry of documents but of rights. The registrar must check the legality of the operations that have to be registered, that is, that those operations and the documents in which they are formalized meet all requirements to produce legal effects. The register provides trust in the private transactions, so third parties will be protected by the situation recorded from the eventual inaccuracies or deficiency in the decision-making by registered companies. The responsibility may be borne either on the managers for falsehood or errors in their acts, or on the registrar that has not checked legality properly. The added value provided by different systems of registration is not the same. We have to consider not only costs in procedures and prices, but also profits. The added value provided by, in those countries in which registry systems have strong legal effects, the market has not produced alternative mechanisms or arise specialized organizations because there is no lack of security to cover. They are not needed. The level of importance and quality of the effects of a registration system, of its output, depends directly on the quality and intensity of the barriers of its entry, its input, essentially on the width of the powers given to the registrar. This emphasis of value is needed because registration information can only reduce transaction costs when the judiciary considers it trustworthy. So both the entry and exit of data in and out of the register must be fully reliable. The most important role of business registry is to be a source of reliable information for judges, government departments, and above all, other companies. This reliable information is essential for reducing transaction costs in future dealings with all sorts of economic agents, both public and private. If the register provides unreliable information, the judge will disregard it, and the economic agents will reject it, making business contracts more expensive or even impossible, as they will have to be based exclusively on personal relations amongst entrepreneurs. So the added value for a registration system lies on being able to solve the market legal security problems with the smaller potential costs. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Ana Maria. Claudia Gallo is a partner of EU account of Ernst Young. And Claudia, you have the floor, and I'll ask Sergio and all the others to stay here for a quick question after the session. Thank you.
Okay, I will try to leave the time for the coffee break as long as possible. I have been asked to participate in this conference because as EY we have implemented a study for the European Commission and more specifically for DG Connect related to the implementation of the once-only principle, and I think that the topic is indeed quite relevant if we think to what has been discussed previously, because indeed the one-only principle is one of the ways that allows to have, I think there is something, that allows to use at best data, to have infrastructures that are cost efficient, as you were saying. So we have implemented this study where the focus was mainly on the administrative burden reduction. So we want to understand, do you have, sorry, thank you. Okay. The administrative burden reduction considered as the costs to businesses and citizens of complying with the information obligations resulting from imposed legislation and regulation. And here, of course, we go back to what has been mentioned before. We start from the point where we do have a regulation, and we just try to understand what is the best way to comply with it, and what is the cost, what are the costs associated to complying with it. In that respect, we can follow different strategies. One is the smart use of the information, and we have already had some examples of this. Making electronic procedures the dominant channel for delivering e-government services and the integration of e-government tools. And here, of course, it's quite clear what is the role that different registers can play in this context. So the once-only principle is a principle. It means that citizens and businesses have to communicate only once with the public administration. And of course, this implies that there is a flow of communication that is quite important among all the different actors involved that collect different data. And again, the example from Spain is an example of how data can be provided to other stakeholders and used in an effective way. But of course, there are many other examples that we can look at. And this is what we have done in this study. We have tried to see what are the best practices, what is the situation, first of all, in Europe. I'm sorry for those of you that are not European, but we have focused on member states of the European Union to understand what were the initiatives related to the once-only principle, and among those, which were the ones that were more interesting and could provide more benefit. So the study is titled The Potential Impact, and I think the reason why I'm here is indeed this word, to understand what is in the end the cost and benefit of implementing such a principle. The champion countries that we have identified, I have skipped, sorry, the previous slide, because and not because of what you said, not because I was frightened by you, but because actually it was more important to introduce the once-only principle before this one. And again, I would only underline on this slide the framework. It's not really relevant to me the number of days. We can discuss, of course, on that and on the approach and the methodology, but still I think that what is quite interesting from the perspective also of our study of the evidence that we collected is that this report provides an holistic overview, an holistic approach, meaning that you look at the life cycle of enterprises from in all the different steps of their life cycle, identifying what are the costs that they incur based on the legislation, the regulation they have to comply with. So to me, that is the important thing that is connected to the evidence that we have collected on the fact that the most successful experiences, the most successful practices are those where there is a holistic strategy, where we do not look at business registers alone, we do not look at a statistical office, but we try really to integrate data in a broader strategy, in a broader policy strategy. So that is the reason why I wanted to introduce this slide. So going back to the countries that we have identified, as I was saying, we were not focusing on the business registers. We were focusing on the digital by default and once-only principle. But of course, we have identified initiatives where the business registers have played a central role. And more specifically, if you look at this last table, you can see that there are examples in Denmark, in the Netherlands, and in the UK. These are the three champion countries. But then, in terms of specific programs and initiatives, what we have is mainly, as regards the business registers, the Danish basic data program. This is, but also the system of the 13 base registers for the Netherlands. If I'm not wrong, there is also someone from the Netherlands here, and maybe he can comment better than I can. But what is quite interesting is that these two programs have put together different registers and enabling the citizens and the businesses to provide data only once. Some of these programs are still ongoing, so we don't have a complete feedback on the results, but what we have collected in terms of analysis of the costs and benefits is really interesting. The basic data program relies on also on central business registry and the company registry, and what is interesting is that the approach of this program is open data, as was mentioned before. The idea is not only to use data that are collected from the different stakeholders for the public administration, for the policymakers, but really to return this data to businesses and citizens. And this, of course, provides a great added value and a net benefit. What is relevant to underline here is that to implement this program, a committee has been created that is an interinstitutional committee. So again, of course, my perspective is a wider perspective, but I think because it is wider, maybe it is also interesting. And what we have done is to understand what if we project the results of these best practices to all Europe, to all member states. And of course, the main challenge that we had was to understand how do we compare costs and benefits, provided that each program has its own methodology, its own classification. So the first step for us has been to identify, to classify, categorize the costs and benefits, identifying costs and benefits for businesses, citizens, and the public administration. I'm not sure that it is worth it going through the details of the costs and benefits, but I mean, we are talking about information cost, about use cost, about investment cost for businesses, citizens, and public administrations. And when we go to the benefits, of course, we are talking about saving of money, saving of time, about the reduction of the administrative burden intended as the cost of compliance with the information, improved efficiency and quality of the services as regards businesses and citizens. But then, of course, there are also benefits for the public administrations, the policymakers, in terms, again, of direct benefits like time savings and efficiency gains, and indirect in terms of improvement of data quality and better service. So if we go to the conclusions of this study and of this presentation, we have analyzed the costs and benefits that have been used for the various initiatives, and more specifically for the Danish and the Netherlands initiative involving business registers. And we have projected the results using, of course, some hypotheses to make somehow comparable these results and to be projected to other member states that have different situations, different state of advancement in terms of ICT and so on, but also in differences in terms of population and so on. So, I mean, I'm not sure that this is quite interesting for you, but we have rescaled somehow the results. And what is clear is that there is a really big benefit, large benefit in the introduction, implementation of the once-only principle. When we project the Danish basic data program, the one that involves the business registers, we can expect a benefit, a total net impact of around 5 billion euros within 2017. Of course, as I was saying, the projections have been somehow simplified under some assumptions, but still all projections that we have done for all the initiatives show that there is indeed a huge benefit in implementing the once-only principle, in using data in a transparent manner, in providing data to different stakeholders, but of course the willingness to cooperate among different institutions is a must for any effective program. So I would conclude here. I think let me, sorry, I just realized there is this unreadable slide that is only to invite you to have a look at this report insofar it provides, for example, the costs and benefits for the Danish case in identifying the benefits for the private sector. What is the private sector impact of such an initiative? And as you can see, out of the total of the net benefits of this initiative, the majority relies on the private sector. So the objective of this panel was to understand how data can support economic development. And I think that if we look at these projections, as simple as they can be, you can have an idea of how much we can gain from a use of data. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Claudia. A brief window for any question in case you have them. I have a couple of questions for Claudia and Sergio, just in case. The first for Sergio is very simple. What's the difference in value between national perimeter versus European or versus global perimeter of data availability for business data in the register? So what's the scale effect when we put all data into a standardized layer of interconnectivity? We will discuss about this later on in the next session. And for Claudia, what is the effect of frequency of data collection? Is 1 year, once per year, enough in a time of cloud-based technologies? Or if we combine digital only with once-only philosophy, we can make frequency on a quarterly basis, on a monthly basis, on a daily basis. You know, speed of doing business is increasing. So, and we don't want to wait till OECD data are available in the next 5 years. We could be dead by that time, Sergio. Your time.
You will be dead. This is clearly an exaggeration, but you have to make always this trade-off. Reliability versus timeliness. Timeliness is what policymakers are looking for, and executives of enterprises. They want to know, for instance, how many tourists came to Rome last week, not last year. to make their, but I think this, we have, as soon as we are developing more digital data collection and we improve the digitalization. This is why the digital agenda is it's so important for, we are not only in the entering into the new world of open data, but we are entering into the area, the world of big data. And big data poses a great deal of the selection of data, as well of the timeliness. So what I want to stress is what Claudia just said in the closing of her excellent remarks, that the importance of cooperation and harmonization of data. This is, we are at the moment, for instance, we are in a discussion on access to finance for SMEs. We have built the scoreboard on SME finance, and it took a lot of time to build this database with central banks. And now the Asian development banks wants to come up with another monitor of access to finance for SMEs in Asia countries. And we are saying, what is the rationale of building another database? Why we don't join forces and we come up on a joint product on a cost-sharing basis, of course. But the cost-sharing is, I think, it should be something to be taken into account when we say that we have to join forces among different institutions across countries.
Let me make a joke in Italian. Every database is like a beetle, okay? Every database is beautiful to his mother. No? Ogni scarrafone di database è bellissimo a mamma sua. So we want to have, common databases as long as it's ours, okay? But we know that there is a scale effect by interoperability, and I'm sure that Gilles and Magdalena will talk about that after the break. Claudia, just a brief remarks on frequency. We need frequent data, otherwise we have to run after those guys in OECD that they say, wait, we can't wait. Claudia.
I don't know. My answer is I don't know what is the ideal frequency. What is quite clear is that once you implement such a system, the once-only principle is the first step of a strategy. And what we have proposed is a roadmap for all member states to be followed to reach the final goal of digital by default. And of course, when you are there, and it takes some time to go there, but you start with the once-only principle, then you go to simplification, and then you go to digital by default. At that point, data are available. Data are in a continuous flow of communication. So you don't need to say, I collect this once a year, because the information that citizens provide, the information the businesses provide are there, can be used, and are continuously updated. So I think that we have to think to that scenario.
Okay, before the coffee break, are there any further questions? No? You're free to reinforce your caffeine dose for the next 15 minutes. See you later. Thank you very much. Thank you to my panel. Thank you very much.